I'd like to actually start by congratulating you on the work we've just seen on the DVD of your intervention in Kenya. And I'd like to start by just asking you, you look on the DVD comfortable, relaxed. Are you inwardly relaxed? Are you inside relaxed? When we see you, Ashafa, doing that, what are we not seeing anyway?
I think what we're not seeing is the fear of some people walking out of the mediation process. Because at that time when we're talking about the hardcore issues, you need to feel the pulse of those pains, of those concerns, those challenges they have. So, and you need to wait to see how we are going to process those pains to come back to a safe landing. So the fear is, please, I hope somebody won't get angry to walk out of the hall.
Good. Well, why don't we just back up slightly and tell us what you discussed between the two of you. How are you going to set up this workshop?
For us, usually we compare notes in the evening to work out what best strategy to adopt. Sometimes it comes by impulse. Sometimes it comes through inspiration. We are not dogmatic about what process to apply in each situation, but the context determines what process.
When we went in, we feel the pulse, the temperature of animosity and hate. If you look from the films, when we go in, we went to the refugee camps, and that is one of the first stage of the feeling the pulse, the temperature, assessing the level of the damage and the intervention. We met with most of the leadership in the camps. Then we went to other part of the community. These are people who have killed themselves and they're meeting for the first time. Some even know that these guys are those who destroy my farms, are those who steal my cows. They know that. Who looted my shops. They know that. They can feel that. So with that tense, we go for what we call searching for the common ground.
For me, it was fascinating to see you allowing people to sort of in front of others expressing the dislikes. And I was sort of thinking that could actually get out of control and people could become heated. And so that's one question. How, did you have an exit strategy in a way?
Yeah.
What was the thinking?
When somebody vent out some pains, we identify with the pains, but it's like using what we'll call the Aikido. It's Japanese style of moving force away and putting the force gently aside. And when they are explosive, we say, okay, can we reflect on this later? Also use spirituality to douse down those pains. It happened to others before. It can happen to you, and you should not allow it to happen again. So with this, when people come with those pains, you are able to process the pains by accepting it, becoming that person that takes the pains and processing the pains and placing the pain on the ground. Not avoiding it completely, that you get back to it, and you must be sincere to go back to it and explaining it in a way that you will have doused the pains and come.
We rehumanize those words.
We wanted to ask you about this peace committee that you set up. Did you lay out for this peace committee what their task would be, or was it up to them then to figure out what their task would be?
We let them figure out what their task should be. What do you want to do? Now the destiny of your community in your hand. What do you want to do before we come back? How do you want us to come back to support you? Look at the issues, work together as a team, and be able to visit various IDPs and help the integration process, reconciling, bringing back IDPs. And when we do that...
How confident were you about them delivering that?
Our confidence lies is these are the people choose them, not we imposing them, not the government imposing them. So we rely on the trust the people have in them to say, without prescribing for them, you must do this or that, we only give them a guiding principles.
So what did they do while you were away?
Well, what they did, of course, was that they started thinking of how to begin to visit one another at the leadership group. And that was a way of telling the other followers that we are beginning to reconcile. We were so amazed that they were able to do that and organize something to show the whole community that we are uniting. And to us, that's the biggest thing.
we see you having a whole day meeting with the Peace Committee, and then we see Pastor James texting a message back home, expressing a sense of apprehension and anxiety. If it was a continuation with the same people, what was worrying you? I mean, Pastor James, what was on your mind at that point?
Thank you. You know, sometimes we have what we did say conflict entrepreneurs, and they are shadows. Usually they come to derail a process that has been ongoing. Now, the gap that while we're not there, what was happening was quite apprehensive. Are we going to have these people continue, or they will say we are backing out?
I'm fascinated and amazed by seeing, I mean, knowing you, but also seeing two Nigerian peacemakers going into Kenya, another African country. And I was just imagining if you came to Palestine and wanted to immediately say Hamas and Fatah who had a similar post-election conflict, why would people listen to you? How, I mean, in a one-day workshop, you seem to have achieved a lot. How did you establish that? How was the relationship with the people? Was there any question on who you are, or why should people open up to you? How did you deal with that?
Empathy is very cardinal to having people receive you. So to us, that issue of empathy removed the doubts. And of course, you also say to them in the opening, this is who you are, and this is what you are here to do. And in that, they are very clear on your objective. You are not a stooge of any institution. You are not representing any government. You are a normal person like they are. And this is why you are here, to see how you can work with them towards solving their problems by themselves. Not prescribing, but eliciting. And to us, we feel people develop confidence in you when they know you are not coming to impose a model or a system.
What about your own story? How do you use or share that?
Yes, at times we use them as a very important tools to say it is the same issues. That's why when we move from who is involved to what is involved, and that has helped a lot.
You have people in the film who are writing down on pieces of paper their own hates or wrongs, and then we see them burning those in a fire. Now, one question that we were curious about was when you gave those pieces of paper out to everyone and asked them to write things down, did they know they were going to have to put them in the fire afterwards?
No, not at all. Not at
okay.
all.
So what did you tell them then? What did they
It was partly our strategy to have them in suspense. What we said, please, can you put every pain on this paper? Just write this pain on this paper. And we are going to do something with this pain. And that something was not told them what will be done with the paper.
Weren't you concerned that some may, stop short of actually, in a way, confessing, because someone might have killed or hated or done damage to the other, and not knowing where this paper is going to end up? They're writing their own death penalty. We have built
confidence for these people before that time. They are at that point, they are already trusting us
as mediators.
You distributed these pieces of paper, and they wrote on them. And then what did you say to them?
Good. We did say that we are going together now to pass on these pains to somebody that can handle these pains. We don't have cure for them, but we believe God will do it. Now, being a Christian in the team, of course, working together with my Muslim colleague, we felt that it was important to go to what is a value to them, which is spirituality. You could see I'm one-handed. It was Imam who was tearing off the sheets and distributing to them. And we were co-facilitating at that time. The synergy was very strong. And then we now said, okay, can we now go out? And I remember vividly Imam telling them that will you show the symbol of relationship? Then they decided that they will hold hands. As you can see from the film, the women came out first, holding. And you see the emotions. I like the power in women's ability to forgive quickly. They held hands, and the men, men will struggle always before they hold hands, but they did.
When they stay in the circle, we say each person of them, we want two leaders, most senior leaders in the group, into the middle of the circle. And then we say, everybody, everyone, each one by one, come and drop your paper in the circle. After they drop their paper, we say, now the elders, we're given matches. We are going to do a ritual process of atoning our sin and the sin of all the people of Burnt Forest.
They were really like emotionally putting their minds to the fire, to the ash, and say, as this fire is burning, this is how your pains are going. Now, they identified, they were attracted to that fire that was burning. Every attention was there, emotions were there. You could read on their faces that they were really connected to that ritual. And then they started singing in their native languages. Of course, as people who just took roles, we didn't know what they were saying in their language, but we knew it was a good song, song of peace. So they were going back into the hall to continue with the process. That was like sealing the process, and the divine intimidation strategy that we talk was brought to bear.
Did anyone voice any concerns? Did you have to deal with any challenges?
No, not at all. You see, when you start a process, the progression will determine what you do or what you don't do. There was no discerning voice and no action to show from what we read, from their body language, that anybody felt bad about it. They were all in it. They were really deep in it.
Would you say it's an African thing, the ritual, or do you see it applying or working in other contexts?
It's international. The context is to look at the people's value and see what is acceptable to them and use it.
There are also, it seems to me, two other sort of ritual moments attached to this. One is there's a peace office that gets inaugurated. Tell us what the peace office is.
Well, the peace office is a process of having an anchor place for where they can be meeting. We agreed that the best solution, of course, is to have an office. So when you have a problem starting up by one of the ethnic groups, if it is a Kalenji starting a problem, the Kalenjis should not take laws into their hands. They should report to the committee, or otherwise vice versa. If it is a Kikuyu that is starting the problem, the Kikuyu should not take laws into their hands. They should report to the committee. Now, that is where the aspect of the political will of the government came, because to let the government know that they are responsible was to invite the local council chairman who came to declare that office open, to say, I know this is happening, and I declare it open, and I say this place should be a place for peace. And then he did cut the tape.
They declared the office open, and the idea of the sorry book come into play.
How easy was it for people to say, I am sorry, to come to that point of either apologizing or forgiving?
I think they didn't quite verbalize it in this case. They wrote it. But you could see from their body language that they meant it. You look at their faces, you see people like really going with all their heart. You know, you can feel it.
What would you say has informed or influenced your methodology? Is it purely African? What is it?
I think it's universal. It's much more our spirituality. The connecting point within us and the divine. And the concept of spirituality is a universal concept of man, his creation, or man and his fellow human being. That is the motivating factor of the sustaining factor for our process.
How was it for you to be in Kenya delivering, trying to bring peace with your Muslim colleague, and as a pair together? How was the relationship? Was it different from home? Give us an insight into what was happening between the two of you, which people wouldn't have known of.
No, for him to speak about the issue of violence as a Muslim to Christians, went further to prick on the Christians' conscience of the fact that they need to emulate Jesus Christ as the Prince of Peace in their life, which they have not. So it's like saying to them, you shouldn't have done this. And coming from a non-Christian was quite powerful, of reminding Christians of their responsibility to coexist in peace.
I was going to ask you whether you have advice for the kind of young people whom I am training how to be good facilitators. And one of the things that we try to do with our students is to put them in pairs so that you do not facilitate on your own. And there are many benefits to that. But most of them don't have sort of 15 years of history the way the two of you do.
I think for beginners is to make sure that you write the steps on ground, and when you have challenge, call for a break. Always concur with your friend and be willing also to submit to good reasoning. Don't be dogmatic about your idea. Don't be rigid. Learn to collaborate with your co-facilitator. And please refer always to your teacher, your mentor. When you have challenges, either by phone or anything, don't follow a process and cause more chaos than peace.
And in addition to what my colleagues have just said, one thing is never expect, don't be anxious that it must finish within a deadline. You don't put a deadline to rebuilding peace and reconciliation. Let the process take care of itself, because the end comes from, because there's an inner wound that you are healing. That's why in peace process, you cannot measure the indicators on the spot and say, I expect A, B, C, D.
Let me ask a similar question about success in a way. And how do you measure success?
To measure impact of the work is sometimes physical. You can see it when you go there, that where you went and the population was skeletal. You go back and there are many more people returning to the area. You measure that that is a success. You have reduced fear, and people are beginning to come back. Secondly, to measure impact is a level of integration. You see people relating again.
Very good. Margaret, would you like to ask or to make any final comments?
Well, I don't have any final comments. I wonder if there's any question we should have asked you that we haven't asked.
It's just like saying, in peacemaking, never give up. You don't end and say you are throwing in the curtain. If you lose credibility, look for someone again, like your partner or outside you, to continue. It is possible to be emotional. It is possible that they may see that you may lose credibility in the process. Don't give up. Keep working at it. Keep talking about it. Keep sweating at it, and prevent blood from being shed.
I think for me, there is no, the important thing is to be a peacemaker. Is the most rewarding experience. But one important thing is you don't own the process. It is the people, the beneficiary, that own the process. You don't need to be an imam or a pastor. You don't need to lose your hand or your spiritual teacher like I did. You don't need to maim or kill the other person before you become a peacemaker. You can be a peacemaker by listening, reading our stories and stories of so many people like us around the world, and be able to, from these stories, connect to develop a vision of making the world a much more safer place. This is what Islam has taught me, that I cannot be a true Muslim as long as I didn't make peace and reconcile with my neighbors and people around.
Thank you.